Hello everyone and welcome to another presentation about Bionic. Bionic aims to be an Ionic CLI clone for the Blazor framework. If you're not familiar with Blazor, please visit blazor.net, and in there you can find how to get started and you can read more about this amazing framework built on the top of WebAssembly and C#. You can quickly start using it by installing the .NET Core, and further down the line there's a little template that you can use, so you can install these templates from Blazor, and then you can also create your own application based on those templates. In order to use Bionic, you need to also install SAS, and if you're coming from the world of Ionic, you'll know that SAS compiles SCSS for its components, for the Ionic components, and that's how we're going to use it in Bionic as well. You're going to develop your own components. They're going to be encapsulated in a SCSS style for isolation, and that allows us to quickly and easy change component styles. In order to install Bionic, you need to run this command .NET tool install -- global Bionic out of Nugget. And so once you install the .NET Core, all you should have to do is .NET tool install -- global Bionic. I already have it installed, and that's why you're seeing that there. Alright, so verify that you have SCSS installed, and since my last video I've added a few commands to Bionic for basic Bionic maintenance. So now you can have Bionic uninstall, you can have a Bionic now that it's uninstalled, you cannot have a Bionic install, so I have to install it again. So let's do that. You can have Bionic update that updates to the latest version out of Nugget. You can do a Bionic version. You can also read about all the commands using the help. You have a Bionic docs that will open the Blazor documentation in case you need it, and you have Bionic info that displays some information about Bionic and .NET environment. Alright, so now the first thing we're going to do is create a small standalone project. Bionic app, but I am also, just for the sake of it, also create a Bionic hosted app, and this one is gonna make use of Blazor hosted. Alright, so now I have two projects in here. One is a standalone, which is the Bionic app, and another one is a hosted Blazor project. Let's start on the Bionic app. So in order to initialize Bionic in a Blazor project, all you have to do is Bionic start. And at this stage, Bionic is ready to be executed, and you can do a Bionic serve. While the project is starting, we can go into code and check what Bionic did at this stage. Alright, so actually if I knew how to type, that would be great. Alright, so now in code let's check what Bionic did. So what Bionic did was to add this file here, app.scss. You'll see in a minute why. It also injected this the compiled version of app.scss in index, right in this line, and also changed the CS project to include the SCSS compilation targets and a watcher that allows us to immediately restart the server as soon as a file has been changed. All right, so let's add a new page to this project. And for example, we can now do a Bionic generate page, and let's call it the counter page. All right, so now Bionic has generated that page, and you'll see that in the pages directory you should have counter page and counter page SCSS. This counter page SCSS was immediately added to the SCSS, so you don't have to do anything or worry about it. All you have to do is generate a new page and you're ready to roll. All right, in here, let's just, for example, obliterate this page over here. Oops. Put the contents in here, and then let's copy the functions. And here should be ready to go. Let's remove this. All right, and now it's already recompiling. We haven't seen the page yet, but hopefully if I now go to the page, I should see the counter in there still. All right, so now we have a new page that has basically a copy of the previous page, and we could do whatever you wanted also on the style for this page in this same SCSS. All right, but we're not going to do it right now. So let's create a new counter component. So we can do generate, but this time I'm gonna generate component, and it's gonna tell me, oh, you're missing something. Okay, so generate component called counter component. All right, so now we should have a components directory, again with the component HTML and SCSS. All right, so let's copy the component section and substitute this with the counter component. And let's move the functionality also now to down to the component. All right. So now we should have a component. So now we have the same counter as a component. Let's make sure that it is a component by adding it to the fetch data. So for example, we can come into the fetch data page and we can add the component just up here. And as soon as it recompiles, we should see the component in here. And as you can see, each component has their own data. All right, but now I want to share this counter with the other counters. So for that, I'm going to create a service. So we're going to use Bionic again, Bionic generate service. Let's use Bionic-G. And it's going to ask me, so what do you want to generate? I want to generate a service or a provider if you're coming from Ionic. And this service, I want to call it the counter service. All right. So now we should have a counter service that has an interface and an implementation class. So let's edit the interface. And let's say we're going to need an int count with the get and set. And you're also going to need an increment function. Ooh, I need to type void. I'd like to type void. All right. So now we have that, and we need to implement this. So we're going to have, let's actually just click in here. Yes, of course. I'm in the wrong editor. All right, so in here we're going to go and add the implementation. So int count get set, and let's initialize this to 0, and then we also need to do public void and that's our increment function. So now what we want to do is inject this service in the component. And one of the things you would have to do is to introduce this service in here, but this was automatically introduced for you when you run the generate service. So you don't, again, you don't need to touch anything and just move forward with the service that you're working on. So let's go into the component, and let's inject my counter service as a counter service. And here let's use counter service count, and in here let's use counter service dot increment. We don't need that. All right. And what this means is that we can also get rid of this. So I think I saved everything. Hopefully. Alright, so let's reload this. And if I see 6 in here, now when I come here, I also see 6, and we have created a shared service between the pages. If I increment in here, go back to the counter, I can see the 14 in there. So Bionic allows us to do this really easily. Now let's see how this works on the hosted application. So remember that we were in a standalone application. Sorry guys. So let's go into Bionic hosted app. Same thing in here before I forget. Bionic hosted app. Alright. And in here the structure is a little bit different. You have a solution, and Bionic allows you to initialize the Bionic structure in any directory once you're inside of this solution. So for example, I can actually go into Bionic shared and do Bionic start, and the project should be initialized just fine. Alright, so let's have a look at this, how this is initialized from here, from the root directory. Sorry, code again just to check this out. And you'll see that nothing has changed in shared, like it's going to CS project. This is just fine. You should have the watcher injected in here, and it's watching for files that are changing on the client side. So that on the server side, a watcher that is used to run the service every time something has changed, any file of interest has changed, then this configuration is set up on the server side. So on the server side, I can now execute Bionic serve to initialize the server, and app should come up. And again, on the client side, you should see that app SCSS was injected, that the SCSS compiler was introduced as well, and that the compiled file is injected on the HTML. And now the same operation is available in this project. All you have to do now is going to the client side and start adding Bionic. For example, I actually have a command in here, so let's create a component, Bionic generate component, counter component, and immediately you'll see that the SCSS for the component was added, and that the component directory was created with the respective component. And that's basically it. I could go into these pages in here again, do the same thing just for the fun of it right now. Move the functionality out of the you'll see that the changes are happening again immediately, being detected and being redeployed. Let me kill this message, okay? And so now that we have this component, I didn't show any SCSS change yet, but I could come in here and say button, and let's change the background color because it's an easy one, and let's change it, I don't know, to black this time. And you'll see that this button should now be black. And this is isolated, so if I go to this page and add the component again on this page, you'll see that let's add two just for the fun of it. And each component is isolated based on the component style. Alright, so let's reload this, and as you can see, component style isolation. So that's it for now. It has been a nice road till now. Bionic will add some pretty cool features, hopefully pretty soon, allowing you to choose the store if you want to use Redux, for example, in the app, and a couple of other things. So let me know what you think. Thank you, and enjoy.